Rachel. I hate that kid. I wish he'd never been born. Everything that happened was because of him. All the children are dead, and all because of the one that got away. The baby king who sent the monster mad. The monster who sent the men with guns and trucks who took the children, who dug the mass grave in a secret place, who wore masks and never spoke. I will never see my son again. I will never hold him or hear him laugh. He's dead. Gone. Under the earth, in a location I cannot ever visit. I cannot even find. I have rage and tears. I am not alone in this. In this town, there are many who scream at night. That is the legacy Mary and Joseph left us. That was their gift to us. It is bitter. I cannot even look up at the stars because they too share the blame. And for what? For what? Naomi. So we were sitting on the beach in Broome, writing songs and telling yarns. Tornina had gone into one of her long silences, which usually meant that either she was really salty with me or that she was doing a dreaming thing. Drac is my brother, and he'd come off one of the fishing boats that afternoon, so he was mellow and tired. As usual, I was stressed because I'd booked us about 3 weeks' worth of gigs across the top end, starting in a week, and we hadn't had a proper rehearsal for about a month. I don't usually worry that much. Music's part of who we are. It's in us. We don't just know our songs, they're part of us. We've been playing and singing harmonies since we were born, almost. We have the blood of this land, Yaru land, and that of Timor, Malaysia, Ireland, PNG, China, even the Torres Strait running through our veins. We're a mixed mob, but we need to be tight. So we needed to write some new songs to freshen things up, something special. I was about to lay down the law when T, which is what I call my beautiful mystic lover, started to sing. She was looking up, then turned to look inland, east, and just began with this incredible melody. It was amazing, full of joy and hope and mystery. And she wasn't singing words, just music. I grabbed for my guitar and Drax started to harmonise. We didn't even need to ask what it was, we just knew this was something unique. I followed her, memorising the chords as she sang and improvising around the edges. Drax's baritone sat like a drone under the whole thing. It was one of the most incredible moments I have had in a life full of music. It was the edge of perfection. Then T pointed, and as we watched, a star flashed across the sky, stopping in the east and winking at us. "We've got to go there," said T. "We have to follow it." When the sky speaks to you, I don't see you have much option. We all understood that we'd been called by something, so we got up the next day and started packing the bus. We sublet the house to some backpackers here for the season, explained to the family what was happening, and 6 days later, we drove out of the town. All our mob came and sang us off. They sang the song from that night on the beach. We'd taught them after finding the right words, sitting around at night and adding more voices each time. The song seemed to grow itself and find room for every new voice and idea. T still led off, but it had a life of its own. In the weeks that followed, everywhere we played, that song struck a chord with the audience. People wept. They roared. Nothing we'd ever done before had been so good. And every night it changed just a bit as crowds begged for it as an encore and added their voices. We called it Star Song, tacky as hell, but it stuck. It was about a dream of something completely fresh and good. In a land smashed and broken and ruled by foreigners, it was like a signal fire. I don't think we realised how dangerous it was, but we were a band in a bus in the remotest part of the country, as if what we sang mattered. So we did sing, and the song kept growing. The star kept one eye on us as we travelled, seemed content to stop when we stopped, then shifted off a bit further, as if it was restless to be home, wherever that was. We followed. Every gig we did brought 5 more offers, and we rolled on, singing the song and chasing the star.
Herod. I bloody hate musicians and mystics and priests. I bloody hate them. I knew they were coming. The excitement had hit the people, even when they were 6 towns away. Some weirdo mob of unknown musos from the West with some sort of smash hit on their hands, gone viral. People are so stupid. They fall for every new craze. They want to be part of it. Idiots. Plebs. These were country hicks from some no-name fishing village who had got everyone frothing at the mouth with 3 chords and a rhyming couplet. I'm no idiot. I know what flies. So I organised a concert at the town hall and an official mayoral reception for these ignorant, talentless vagrants. Bread and circuses never fails to impress the unwashed masses. I had the permission of the military governor. Security was going to be very tight. Nothing was to get out of hand. A pointless night of pointless music for a mindless mob. What could have been more fun, other than sawing off your own hand? Of course, I had to attend. Wave to the sickening crowd of undereducated fools I must pretend to care for. Smile, wave, vomit. And then the ridiculous facade began. I don't get caught out often. But I was that night. Mostly they played and sang, and it was perfectly meaningless. But then they sang that song, the one that had been causing all the excitement. It was different. It frightened me, not least because I found myself singing it. There was something seriously wrong about it, seriously dangerous. The crowd went insane. They begged for it again, and then, as if they had known it all their lives, they sang it. The town hall creaked with the volume. I thought about calling in the security to shut it down, but they were singing too. And when it ended, I called for the head priest and that witless theology lecturer from the seminary, the one who'd spent an hour at our obligatory meeting telling me about psalms. It was very easy to get them in the room. They were all at the concert, of course. Fools. They'd heard the song, so I demanded to know what it meant. Who the hell was this newborn king the band had talked about? The one they said was close because the star had nearly stopped. What the hell was going on? This was insurrection. We didn't need a king. We had me. But they were as dopey as star-struck teenagers. They were still singing it. I punched one of them in the face, and that focused their minds. The lecturer mumbled something about old prophecies about a king and a nearby town. All very vague, they said. No one took it seriously. And then they mentioned... I'm not going to name the town. There's been enough trouble already. It's a shithole of a place, and if I could, I'd wipe it and every person there off the face of the earth. But there's no point now. I had what I needed. I called in the band.
Naomi. It had been a crazy time. Every gig was bigger than the last, and this was a big town. A city, even. A mayoral reception. We didn't even know what that was. The gig went off. Thousands of people were there. When we played the song, it was like a tidal wave of longing swept through the crowd. Goosebumps. Crazy wild. After the show, we were called in to have dinner with the mayor. Tables groaning with food and wine, all the local bigwigs. Then Herod. He was a creep. Right from the start, we all felt it. Even before he got to us, T froze. She's sensitive to stuff. She clung to me and she was shaking. Drac picked up on that fast and did most of the talking. We had to sit and eat and drink with him. He kept filling our glasses and asking questions about the song. Told us he loved it, was a big fan. Pure bullshit. He wanted something. He was evil. We were scared. T was on the verge of tears. I was giving monosyllabic answers to everything. Drac, bless him, had to fill the gaps. He was brilliant. He deflected almost everything Herod asked. Played the fool, acted the drummer. But there was no competition in the end. He mentioned the star and Herod honed in like a Jack Russell on a tennis ball. We were cooked. We told him the star had slowed down recently when we thought we were near. We told him we thought maybe there was a king waiting to be found. We told him that we'd been following a call and that this was from above. He smiled and played us like hooked fish, leering at T until I wanted to scream. I was terrified. Drac was drunk. He'd worked so hard and he'd matched Herod drink for drink, but he was done. Herod told us we'd been really helpful. Said he wanted us to find this king and then come back and let him know so he could go and welcome him. Gave us the keys to the city and said we should restock the bus and fill the tanks and get on the road as soon as possible. He had a smile like a ghoul and a handshake like a thumbscrew. We all felt dirty when we left his table. All night I held T and she wept and wept. I looked out the window and the star had stopped. Not far. We might be there tomorrow, wherever there was. So long on the road and now so close, all tainted by one meal with one maniac. Rachel. We couldn't believe it when that band's bus rolled into our little town. We'd all heard about them, of course. Social media, that which was still allowed, even got to us. We watched them drive to the edge of town and stop near Mary and Joseph's caravan. They'd been living there for about 18 months by then. We all liked them. I loved Jesus. He was such a sweet kid. They all disappeared into the house where Mary spent most days with the old couple out there if Joseph was working. Then, after a bit, they came out, started setting up their instruments on the back of the flatbed trailer in the paddock. Mary messaged me. They were going to play for us, a free concert. Every single person in town, including the kids, all the kids who are now dead and buried in the cold ground, went that night. It was magical. We sang our hearts out and we danced like mad things. I held my boy and we laughed as we whirled around in the dust. It was like nothing ever before or since. It felt like the beginning of something. It was. Naomi. T knew which house it was. Don't ask me how. At times like these, I don't ask her because she often can't say. But she knew. When we cut the engine, evening was creeping in. The diesel throb kept ringing in my ears until the sound of birds calling to each other took over the soundscape. We sat in the bus with the dust settling around us. There was the tick of cooling metal. There was the sound of the wind in the gum leaves. We'd been on the road for months, following the star, singing the song, never really sure what we were doing, and here we were. We had no idea why. T took my hand, and then she took Drac's. "Come on," was all she said. An old fella stepped onto the veranda of the house. "Evening. How can we help you?" "We've been sent to find the newborn king," T said, straight up, as if he'd know what she was talking about. I love that about her. She doesn't doubt what she believes. And of course, he did know. "Yeah, well, not so newborn anymore, but he's here. Come in, I'll put a kettle on. You's hungry?" "Maybe later, thanks," said T. Then we all trooped in after the old guy. Inside there was an older woman, a girl who didn't look more than about 18, and a toddler sitting on her knee. We fell down on our knees, literally. He just looked at us with those startling eyes of his, and we just dropped. His mum, Mary, it turns out, laughed. It was like hearing a bell ring on a clear morning. And when she laughed, so did the boy. He giggled and wriggled out of his mother's arms, padding across the floor and straight into T's arms. She hugged him, and he looked as settled as a joey in a pouch. Then she sang to him. We all sang. We sang his song to him. We filled that room with our song, and when we finished, we knew it was complete. It had led us here. It had always been for him. Now it was finished. Well, said the old girl, that's not something you experience every day. I reckon you might have a story to tell. We did, and we told it. Mary listened like it was something she wanted to remember forever. When we'd done, T ran out to the van and came back with something wrapped in an old rag. This is for you, she said to little Jesus, that was his name, and unwrapped a huge, rough-cut opal filled with fire and water and deep magic. For your crown, she said, when you are king. And he laughed again, eyes lighting up like the stone he was holding. I have no idea where she got it. I know it was perfect. Drac and I made eye contact and raced outside. What have we got? I asked. Stuffed if I know, said Drac. We dived into our gear. Drac gave him a bottle of eucalyptus oil. It's good for when you got a snuffly nose and to put on cuts to stop them going bad, he said to the quietly listening boy. But mainly it just makes things smell good and clean and like the bush. Jesus put his finger in the bottle and wiped it on Drac's hair. Smell good, he laughed. Then he looked at me, wondering if I had a gift. I felt odd because I had something, but I knew it wasn't in any way appropriate for a little kid. I opened my bag and pulled out the feathers. These are curlew feathers, I told him. They're birds who cry at night, and their cry sounds very sad. Sometimes when we are sad, those cries help us to find tears, and sometimes they help me remember that things can be both sad and very beautiful. Some Aboriginal nations say the curlews know when someone is about to die, and they sing for them to remind them that it matters to the world that they're going somewhere else. I don't know why I'm giving them to you, but they're soft and they're real, and one day you might need them. He took them and he gently rubbed them across his face. Soft, he said. Sad. He rubbed them down my nose. Then he kissed me. I will never, ever forget what that felt like, his little soft lips brushing my cheek. Beautiful, he said. Tell you what, the old bloke said, you play us some tunes tonight and we'll feed you lot like you've never been fed before. Deal? Joseph rolled in from work and helped us set up the gear. Jesus and Mary danced in the dust even before we started tuning up. She messaged everyone in town to invite them over for the gig. It was an amazing night. Best show we ever played. As I lay in T's arms that night, I thought it was over. Then Drac screamed. He dreamt of blood and Herod and Jesus and terror. He was incoherent for about an hour, shaking and sweating. After that, he just said we had to go, quickly and west, as far and fast as we could. We have to go home. It's how we keep him safe. They were all still sleeping when we started the engine. As we drove past the caravan that the little family lived in, I saw Jesus' face at the window. He was waving and holding my feathers.
Joseph. I'd heard the scream in the night and I woke scared. I heard the bus pulling out and gunning it down the road to the interior, not to the city. Right then, my dream came back with a clarity that tore away any shreds of sleep that remained. It had been the same angel, the one who had come to me before, this time urging me to wake up and get Mary and Jesus out of there, away from the darkness closing in. I woke Mary and explained I started packing the ute. I knew exactly where we needed to go. That woman T had spoken to me the night before. She told me that if things ever got scary, we should head west. I have friends underground near Cooper Pedy. Go to the buyer and ask for Gresso. Tell him that T says she's calling in the favour. Go to the tunnels. Wait. Work. Stay hidden as much as you can until... Until when? I'd asked. I don't know, was all she'd said. Until you know. Of course, Mary wouldn't leave until she'd rung her friends and warned them that Daughtry was coming. They all wanted to know from where. Mary explained my dream. I was begging her to get in the car. They all said they'd give it some thought. Even as she put Jesus into his car seat, she was still trying to get them to take her seriously. We hugged our old friends, the ones who had become like parents to us. They said they'd pray for us and not to worry. They'd be fine. We were all crying. I filled the jerry cans at the servo, some with diesel, some with water. As we headed out of town, I could see storm clouds coming in from the direction of the coast. Dark, angry clouds. Jesus was crying and wiping his tears with the feathers he'd been given. It was days before we could get him to let go of them.
Rachel. She tried to warn me, and I laughed. The idea that danger would come to our town was unbelievable. We all knew Herod was a nasty piece of work, but, well, how could we have known? How could we? After he was taken, my boy, the house was so quiet. That day I chased the truck on foot for nearly 3 kilometres. My husband found me wandering on a side road. He took me home. There was just a house after that. I'll never be a home again. I can't forgive them for bringing this to us, but I hope they got away. I wish they'd never come, and I hope I never see them again, but I wouldn't wish the way I feel on even my worst enemy. I go to the river with our other mothers and we weep. The curlews cry with us. They understand.